Hello and welcome to Spoken Magic by Dylan Anarasis, our lovely friend. This is the incorrect source for my screen. That should be a thing. Why isn't that a thing? Woo! I am still learning how to stream, but I'm an affiliate now, which is really exciting. Thank you for everybody who shared that tweet and stuff about me becoming an affiliate. I really appreciate it. Yeah, this is wrong. One sec, let me fix this. There we go. Yeah. So, oh my gosh! Thank you for the bits, Dylan. You're so nice. Wow. So we're gonna play Spoken Magic, which is a wonderful game by our friend Dylan Anarasis, who's in chat right now. And he, this is a game he wrote for WizJam, which was on itch.io, and yeah, it was on WizJam. Thank you for the host, Jess. This is really lovely. And it's all about speaking words into magic. It is not designed as a solo game, but it can be played as a solo game. And so I'm gonna give it a try. And we'll see how it goes. So one of the wonderful things that Dylan did for me, full disclosure, Dylan gave me a copy of this game to try out. And one of the very wonderful things that he did for me was make this beautiful Roll20 system, which is really cool and really lovely. And I hope he will put it up on Roll20 for everybody else to play soon. But yeah, essentially the way this works is that you're a spellcaster on a journey, and you spend your money, not money. You go through your journey, you find locations, you come across problems, and you create spells based on the words that you have, which is fun. It's kind of like, I feel like it's kind of like Scrabble, but like, it's like Scrabble but with words. It's like Scrabble and apples to apples and magic somehow, squishing it all together. That's what I think. That's how I would describe it. But the first thing that we're gonna start off is we're going to create our character. So we need components, we need a name, and we need words. There is, so first we're gonna pick a name. I just have my character, but we're gonna change that. I need like a sorceress name. I'm bad at names. I should have planned this ahead of time. Let's go with Estrella, of the sunlit coast. I don't think you can see this properly. No, you know what? This is just Estrella. I mean, we're boring. Or actually, we'll put of the sunlit coast. Sunlit. Why can't I spell sunlit coast? And we'll just make it. We'll make it a little smaller so people can see. I'm playing with this index card thing slightly. This is a new thing I'm trying. Instead of rolls, is to have the have that. So, but I don't know if it's gonna work. So we shall see. We shall see. Yeah, Estrella of the Sunlit Coast. I'm gonna stop playing with it. Tell me if you can't see anything very well. I'm just gonna ignore that. So that's her name. And then we select a card at random from the Arcanum deck, which describes the nature of Estrella's magic words. So this is the Arcanum deck. Here, I'm gonna shuffle it. We're gonna draw. Wow. I pulled this before while I was playing with around, and I was like, oh, I don't want to pull it again, so I'm gonna shuffle. And I got the same thing. So your words are elemental. That's what that means. My words are elemental. So we'll find out about that later. Share your names and decide who goes first. It's me. I go first. I have to decide one thing about Estrella of the Sunlit Coast. And I think the one thing that I am going to say about Estrella of the Sunlit Coast is that they they don't believe in magic. I'm gonna change this font. Let's go back to our old favorite. Yeah, they don't believe in magic. I'm gonna make the spacing a little less ridiculous. And, yeah. Next step. To give the energy shape, they will need words. So I got to decide. I have to draw 6 cards from my words deck and cast spells. So how can I make this? We'll put this here for now. And I don't need the Arcanum deck anymore, so I'm going to deal myself 6 cards to me. These are just, I did not look at any of these words beforehand. These are just these are just sounds. I'm gonna have to make these a little smaller for now so I can see them on this screen while I play Window Tetris. Yeah. So, well, now they're not all going to be the right size, and I'm going to hate it. Yeah. These are my words that I get to pick. I have no idea what they mean yet. I'm just gonna decide that as we go, but they're elemental, so these words all mean something elemental. So that's fun. Do I like deciding more based on the words or the runes? I don't know, because this is the first time I've ever played this, because why would I ever learn how to play a game before I start streaming it? You're intended to decide them before the journey starts based on the Arcanum. Oh. Okay. Well then, I guess I do have to decide this right now, which is fine. I'm leaving them up here so we can see, so I don't have to keep pulling them from my hand. So let's say, you don't gotta, rules are for nerds. Look, there's like maybe 2 people who've played the page I didn't write correctly, and one of them is me. So I'm going to play your game, rules as written, and then decide if I need to change it. So gull, I think that's a wind word. Azair is lightning. It's like a lightning word. Juror. I think that's also a lightning word. Undoom. Undune, I thought would be an ice word, but now that I say it, I think it's a water word. Burr. Burr is that's a nice word. Burr. Because remember that that Estrella doesn't believe in magic, so any of the magic that they cast has to be kind of like it has to kind of come out of nowhere, like not thinking about it, right? So if somebody was like burr, there would be ice, or maybe then in that case burr is a fire word. Yeah, I kind of like that. I kind of like that burr is a fire word. And that you'd say it and you were cold and you speak fire into existence. And lay is lay. Let's make lay an ice word. Did it take... I bet it took Dylan a very long time to put this into Roll20, just based on what I know about uploading card decks into Roll20. So, now that I know... now that I know what that means... I mean, 45 minutes to an hour is still a lot of time to be sitting in Roll20 making card decks. All right. Journey begins. So, before the journey can begin, we need to make a home. So we're going to draw the card from the location deck, and I have to draw the bottom card of the location deck. So, I'm going to let I'm gonna let myself choose a card from a deck. This is... No, I don't want backs, I want fronts. Secretly, how to use Roll20. Home. My home is... Oh, I can't see. I'll make this big just for a second. See, I'm playing it rules as written, Dylan. I'm gonna do it all. My home is Ithrazaya, what lies within the ruins. I can press Z to full screen the card for a second. Thank you. I appreciate that information. So this is my home. What else do I have to decide about my home? An aspect of this home and why I'm leaving. Ithrazaya, what lies within the ruins. I think this is a castle that has half fallen into the sea. an ancient one. Not like a castle, like a keep or a palace, right? So there's like a little castle area, and then some of the other buildings and the retaining wall have fallen into the sea, as the waves just kind of shear away at the sediment of this cliff, and it just keep more of and more of it keeps falling into the sea. And I think I think the better question, before we figure out why Estrella is leaving, is why does she or they live there in this kind of like destroyed ruin? And I think it's because there's a sacred fire there. And there was no way to move the sacred fire. And so Estrella has been there, or not that there was no way to move the sacred fire, but the sacred fire was there and it was protecting a nearby town. And the fire was what was once in the middle of this keep in an old cathedral, and people have been chosen when they come of age. Children of each generation were chosen to be keepers of the fire, and Estrella is the keeper of this fire. But Estrella is also the last keeper of the fire, because the cliff has been sheared so much that the fire is about to go out, or is about to fall into the sea. And so now it is Estrella's job to take this sacred flame and bring it to a safe place. Perhaps they need to bring it to what will be the new home of her people. And I think somebody else has gone and scouted and found a place for their people, and brought word back. And before towns and cities can be built and people can relocate, the first thing they need to bring back is this sacred flame, because they believe it protects the people. But Estrella doesn't believe in magic. So Estrella just thinks this is for the symbolism. And they understand that it's important to the people. They don't take their job not seriously. But I think they've always kind of doubted whether or not the divine is there, and whether or not this sacred flame has any kind of magic power. And who knows what they're going to find on their journey. So that's Astrea's home. Former home. Now it's time for their new home. So now we go on our journey. And the first thing that we do is we take our first turn, we draw a location card. So I don't need any more words deck, so I will hide that. We have a location, we have a problem. So I'm gonna shuffle the location deck since I opened it and looked at it before. And, oh, it's gonna load for me. Hello. I think I broke my Roll20. Yeah, I super broke that preview. There, oh. I don't know. That doesn't seem to be working super well. So, so this is the Plains of Primordium. I don't know super how well you can see. Let me see if I can zoom y'all in a little bit more without kind of messing around with everything. But yeah, the Plains of Primordium, Truth and Illusion. So we'll zoom back out. How's that look for people? Good. All right. Let's zoom in a little more so that the words, we can see the words on the cards a little bit. So now I have to describe a scene at the place that I have journeyed based on the prompt written on the card. Truth and Illusion. So I think this has to do with the removing of the fire. And I think this is a big kind of scary time for Astrea and their people, because they believe this is what is, or their people believe that this is what is keeping, is that just gonna, oh God, that's awful. I'm so sorry that that's just there now. There we go. Hey, I made it work now. Yeah, that this is what's protecting their people from probably some, I don't think it's monsters. I think it is like, I think it's like a weather thing. You know, this is the sunlit coast, but I think like any kind of coastal place, the weather is as kind of volatile as the sea itself. And so there can be very high winds, especially in this city that is so exposed to the cliff. So this is probably a fire that protects them from storms. And when they realized it was time to move, they sat and they had a very long conversation about, do we move the people first or do we move the flame first? Because on the one hand, you say, move everybody, get them settled, and then take the flame. But then you have these people unprotected in a strange land that they don't know. So they decided, there was probably a council of elders, and they decided that the best thing to do was to take the flame there first, so that they'll be protected in this new land that they don't know, and that they will do their best to protect each other while they are away, while the flame is gone, because they will only be there for a little bit of time. And so they waited until they thought the storms would be calm for a long period of time. And made this decision, and people are very tense. I think we see Estrella as they walk out of town, and people are watching them. It was a big ceremony, and people are watching them in their ceremonial garb going through this town and into these plains. And it's very tense because people are afraid they're going to die. People are not sure what's going to happen when they don't have the light of the flame to protect them. And I think Estrella is wondering, will this make them out of a job once they realize that the flame maybe won't protect them, that they'll be safe without the flame, and that this is all an illusion. And as they're carrying this flame, I think it's in a... I think it's in a bowl. But I think the part of the ceremony is that they carry it from the bowl, and then they put it in like a very ornate lantern. And they're carrying this flame in this lantern, and they can see storm clouds ahead. And it's like, when a storm system just stops just short of what, of where you are, and you can see like the wall of rain. I think we see that, once Estrella is well out of town. And they prepare themselves to kind of go walk into the rain. They pull their hood up and hold the flame kind of close to them, trying to shelter the lantern. The lantern will be mostly protected from the rain. That's why it's there. It's in a lantern like that. But it's the sacred flame. You got to be careful with it. And as they go, they steel themselves, and they take a deep breath and step into the rain, but there's no rain. Everything just, the rain all of a sudden just stops. And Estrella doesn't get wet at all. And Estrella looks at the lantern and looks back at the town and looks at the clouds, and I think kind of shrugs, because that's got to be fake, right? Like, that's not real. Like, that's a coincidence, and keeps going. So that's our scene in the plains of Primordium. And now we are, now we have a problem. So we draw a problem card, we describe what's happening, who the problem affects and why, which is, it's just me, so it's going to be a problem for me, and why the problem must be solved with magic. So let's draw a problem card. Legitimacy in question. Why does that always? I never want to edit the token Roll20. Like, never, ever. Oh. Okay. I was holding it. Problems can also affect NPCs. Yeah, okay. Legitimacy in question. Wow. Apparently, all of a sudden, we get Estrella's moment of truth. Sooner rather than later. And I think okay. So this is the legitimacy of this sacred flame. It comes into question. Because I think as there's no rain where Estrella is walking in the plains. And these are plains. It's very, very long. And so Estrella has been walking for probably days now. But they can still see their home because everything is so flat. And they can see over to their home, and they can see that there is an awful storm building in the distant, or over the town. Big flashes of lightning, big dark angry clouds, and I think there's smoke and there's fire, and Estrella is confused because you can't just take a whole fire pit, right? They took a part of the sacred flame, and put it in this lantern, but not all of it. And this is the worst storm Estrella has ever seen in their lifetime. Probably anybody has ever seen in their lifetime. And Estrella looks at this lantern and says, "Of course. You don't mean anything, do you?" Talking to the fire. Because that's what you do when you're traveling alone for a really long time. You just start talking to inanimate objects. And Estrella's probably talked to the fire quite a bit throughout their lives as a firekeeper. It's probably not a super solitary life, but a more solitary life than another job in town. And they are torn because they don't know what to do. They don't know whether to return and help the people, or they don't help their people, or they don't know whether to continue. And they're sitting there because they're taking a break, and they're sitting in this grass. There's probably like some kind of large stone, and they're torn for a while, but they know that if this place is no longer safe, if fire is going to destroy everything that they have, if the storm is going to speed up the ruin of their community, then they need to find a new home sooner rather than later. And they know that this fire is incredible, even though they doubt whether or not the fire has any protective purposes. They know it's incredibly important to their people. It's an incredibly important symbol, and for the love and respect of their people, they are going to continue, even though it's so hard, because all they want to do is run back and help these people that they love. And they sigh, and they stand up from the rock, and they pick up the lantern and accidentally touch the glass instead of the handle. And it's hot, and they pull their hand away, but as they pull their hand away, they hear something. They hear a word. And now I'm going to cast a magic word, which is the next part of the game, is that we're going to cast a spell. So with this works with more people, there is more creating of a spell together. But because I'm playing just by myself, all of my spells are one word. And I get no extra help dice or no extra but no hinder dice as well. And so I'm going to pick a word, which was, which was my wind word. I think gull was my wind word. I could always hinder myself. No, but I can only play one card. So I have to cast a spell, unless I decide that I'm hindering by casting a spell. I suppose I could just like screw myself over. But yeah, so gull was our wind word. So we're gonna play it. And I have to roll a 6-sided dice for each word. Yeah. Places the location card in front of them, discards the problem card, and their turn ends. Okay. Let me just... So now, I thought I made a macro. There we go. So I get to roll 1 dice. And if I roll a 6, the spell works. And if I don't roll a 6, the spell is temporary. So what's nice about playing this solo is that as long as I'm not using a spell to hinder, my spell will always be successful. But there's a very low chance of my spell being successful permanently. It's always kind of fleeting. Which is, I think, really interesting because it tells a sort of different story about our heroes, right? Because you are more likely to do well if you have other people on this journey with you. Um, and I was talking to somebody about narratives and how narratives of like individualistic narratives are incredibly Western, and you know, kind of white. And so the idea that like you can have this narrative of an individualistic character, but they're always going to be weaker. Like they can do it, but your narrative is always going to be strong. The narratives you play in this game are always going to be stronger, and more successful with the more people that you play, which is kind of cool. Although we, I mean, hopefully we'll do well with this. I could just roll super good, just sixes all the time, and then maybe I'm like a god or something, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. Trying to change the world by yourself is hard. It's true. It's almost always easier to change the world with other people. But I don't think she's trying to change... Estrella. I don't think Estrella is trying to change the world by themselves. They're just trying to take care of a fire. So I did not roll a 6. And that means that the spell is only temporary. Yes. Weak and only partially affected. I describe how the problem is solved, but only partially or temporarily. So I think they hear this word, they pick up this lantern, they touch the glass and it's hot, and they pull their hand away. And as they touch the glass, they hear the word gull. And they're looking and they're shaking their hand because it's hot. Probably put it in their mouth, like put their fingers in their mouths. And as they pull their hand out of their mouth, they say, gull? And from the space in between their finger and their mouth, a rush of cool air appears, and cools the burnt fingers. And you see across this long grass of these plains this huge gust of wind going impossibly fast across the plains, into the back towards the direction of the city, and they push the clouds away. And the worst of the storm is gone. But it was not all of it. It doesn't push it. There's still black clouds and lightning over the city, that they lived in, but not as thick, not as black, not as much lightning. And they can still taste and smell the smoke of this burning city. And I don't think it's a big city. I think it's a small community, but they can still smell the burning. That even though they were able to hold off the wind, the spell was able to hold off the storm, the destruction and the devastation still continues. So, once the spell is complete, 2 or more words were committed, which is never going to be a thing. So we're just gonna discard. I might just make a discard pile. Where's... Don't delete words. There's a chance you'll use them. You'll reuse them. Okay. I just... Okay. I think I'll take the card into my... Because I'm not quite sure how discard works. In Roll20. There is a discard pile, but I'm not quite sure how it works. So, that's our problem. I also took the wrong card, so we will fix that. There's a chance that I'll reuse them. Where is that chance? In the rules, did I miss that? Yeah, I don't see where I would pull a discarded card again. There's some problem cards that bring up old words. Good to know. Thank you. Okay. I will not delete the cards. Yeah, like I said, I'll keep it in my hand for now. And let's... we will flip. I'm just gonna play around with my space a little bit. Yeah. All right, I think I'm just gonna have to do some fun scrolling times because yeah. I don't know how else to make this work. So yeah, bear with me as I play with cards on Roll20. The screen real estate struggle is real. Yeah. What I could do is get rid of the dice roller until I need it, which I might do. Or just roll a regular dice and y'all can trust me. All right. So, that's a turn in Spoken Magic. So now we will... Rigged. Oh no, I just rolled a 6 again. Oh my god, amazing. So now I get another problem deck. The Hollow Hunt. All players must contribute. Oh, so I go to a new location too as well, yes? I think that's true. So let's pull a new location first. So, oh my god, every time. I do not want to edit this token. Whispering Fjord, a secret revealed. This is fun. So we'll just flip that over for now. Actually, no, I'm going to recall because I took that. I did that wrong. So I'm going to pick another one once I describe the scene, because I think it would be too hard for me to describe the scene without being like, oh no, I have to have a hunt here. So, Whispering Fjord, a secret revealed. So, I think the wind continues. And I think the way actually that the wind was temporary was that it did blow the storm away, but it also kind of started to come, the wind turned and started to come back kind of like a boomerang. Or no, not yeah, kind of like a boomerang. And I think I think the wind also made things catch more on fire. And so there's been it's been an incredibly windy walk now. Almost feels like Estrella is being pushed forward, and Estrella has to hold the lantern kind of very close to them because they're afraid that it's going to blow out. They realize that they have to get some cover, and they have to get away from the burning grass and the smell. And so they go down a path back towards the sea, where it's lower, and so the smoke is up on the higher level, and it's also a little more protected from this huge gust of wind. And the fjord is whispering because of the way that these wind gusts, this one magical wind gust, and the wind and the winds caused by the tide and just the regular kind of air currents bounce against bounce again back and forth up against the fjord, makes this kind of whispery, eerie sound. And I think what's happened is that Estrella has been walking along this one edge of the fjord or edge of the coast, and comes to this fjord, and they can't cross it. It's too at its mouth, and so they have to go in further along the fjord and around in order to find a place that they can cross easily without having to, get into the ocean, which they obviously can't do with this sacred flame. And as they're holding this flame close to them during, a period of higher tide, and they're protecting this lantern from the spray and the wind, and they hear so many words whispered to them. They hear that word before, gull, over and over again, but they hear all of these other words. And they can't tell if it's coming from the lantern or the wind or what, but at one point when they're taking a rest and they stop and they put the lantern down in a place that is protected enough so that they can have something to eat, the whispering stops. The wind still sounds like a whisper, but they can't make out words anymore. And they look and they pick up the lantern again, and all of a sudden they hear Juror Barazer and then like they hear all these words, and then they go away, and then they when they put the lantern down, it's just wind again. And they very carefully put the lantern on a rock and stare at it and say, "Are you talking to me?" And Estrella puts their hand on the top of the lantern again. And it's warm, but not hot this time. And they hear, "Yes." And now we will draw a problem card. A spreading blight. Well, I think this must be the fire. Yeah, I think this must be the fire. Is that the fire has been, because it's plains, it's grass, right? And so when the wind brought came back, it brought the flame with and started a huge grass fire. And the plains weren't completely decimated, but there is a very obvious path of flame, and it's coming up, and it's heading towards an area that's denser, and a little wetter because it's because the spray is quite high here, and so the fog, the smoke is becoming thick and black and hard to breathe. And I think there are some bushes now. It's kind of more like tundra, more of a tundra space. So there's lots of low little brush and maybe some kind of fungus that when it's burned, it lets off noxious gas that causes quite a sickness. And I think there is a very small fishing village nearby that Estrella was planning on staying at, and resupplying. And they can see with this wind and this fire that this gas is going, or that this noxious smoke is going to come, and it's going to kill the fish, and it's going to make people sick, and it's going to cause just all of these awful problems. And so they they say, they look at the lantern, they're holding the lantern, and the lantern hasn't said anything since to them, since that first time in the fjord. But they look at the lantern, they hold the lantern up, and they say, "This is your fault. Can't you do anything about this?" And the lantern says, "But no, but you can." And the lantern, and Estrella is very confused because no, this isn't their fault. This music is a little bit inappropriate, I think. Let me just... there we go. This wasn't a steel drum scene. They say, they look at this lantern in confusion because, and they say, what do you mean I can't do anything? And they said, and the lantern says, "And what makes you think that the fire is my fault? It's your fault. You're the one who cast the word." And Estrella goes, "No, I didn't. You told me a word and I said it." And also, I'm going crazy because I'm talking to a fire. And Estrella hears laughter. And the flame says, "Oh, my dear Estrella, I know you harbored doubt in your heart about me, but I am real. And I gave you my power. I've given it to you long ago. It is only because you refused to listen that you did not know that you could do this." And all of a sudden, another kind of, the wind picks up and some of this noxious smoke appears, and Estrella starts coughing, and the fires, and Estrella says, "Well, what do I do about this?" And the flame says, "Lay." And Estrella goes, "Lay? Like lay down? And if a fire in a lantern could roll its eyes, it would. And and it yeah, if a fire could roll its eyes, it would, and says, "No, lay." Say it. Say it while you're touching my glass. And Estrella looks at the lantern and the lantern says, "I won't burn you." And so they pick up the glass of this lantern and hold it and say, "Lay?" And beside them, we're gonna roll first and see before I describe if it's cool. It's not cool. I mean, it's pretty cool, but it's just like not cool enough, right? That was a 5. It was not a good roll. The spell was not as successful as it could have been. It's temporary or partial. And could be cooler. Yeah, 5 out of 10 could be cooler. Or 5 out of 6, I guess. And this wave kind of rolls up and crashes against the rock and onto the grass above. And the smoke just fills the air. It's humid and it's gross, and Estrella is incredibly violently ill. It's and they have to kind of outrun it, kind of gasping for breath, and eventually they get to a calmer place, a clean air, and they are still, like, they can barely walk. They're almost crawling now, and they are coughing and gasping. And the fire is out. It won't spread. It won't make to the city. Oh my goodness! Norm! Snow Dogs, thank you! You are, my very first subscriber. Gosh, that's really cool. Wow. Wow, thank you. Thank you so much for subscribing. I'm sorry I don't have any emotes for you yet. This is brand new. I don't know when I will have emotes, but maybe soon. Gosh, that's really cool. Wow. And yeah. Yeah, the smoke, the fire stopped. The smoke is there and it's lingering over the area, and Estrella can feel like just the burning in their lungs, and it will take them a very long time to heal. But but the town is safe. So that's the best they could hope for. And wow. So now I am going to put that away, take that, and take that. And it is 7:30, which means it is time to feed my cats. So we're gonna take a very quick break while I feed my cats, and then we're gonna find out what is happening with Estrella and this very sassy fire that is on the journey now. So I hope I will see you soon. Okay. I am back. And I don't know what's up with my music and why it's not here anymore. Let me try again. Let me try again to have some music. I had to feed my cats because if I did not, everything would be awful. Where was I? There we go. Music. My music, by the way, is all by the Feature Brothers. It's very good. It's my favorite kind of background music. I use it in my home D&D games, and they have just so many. And you can check out the playlist I'm using right now, right there in chat. Or if you're watching this on YouTube, I'll have a little link thing. But so yes, we are Estrella of the Sunlit Coast. We are bringing a very a fire with attitude, a sacred fire with attitude, to the to their new lands that they found, or that have been found by somebody in their village who wonder who it's going to be. We should figure out who this person is at some point. They went through a plane, discovered they had magic, and accidentally caused a brush fire. They went through a they had to go lower to avoid the brush fire, and got very sick because the fire started burning some noxious fumes, and are now going to be somewhere new. Let's find out where that somewhere is. Gilded Reef. This is all working very well for my like. Yeah, RNG is doing very well for our journey. So, yeah, the Gilded Reef is a great treasure. I think the Gilded Reef is, in fact, the village that that they come to. And I think this village is pretty remote, not used to seeing travelers. But they did meet the person from Estrella's village who was there before them, who was on their way, who blazed the trail. And they said, and so the fishing village was aware of what was going on and said that and actually had correspondence from this person. I think this person's name is Siseo. Siseo is Saseo is another kind of person on the outside, like Estrella. And they've never been particularly close, because Estrella's not close to anybody, but there's always kind of been a little camaraderie between them. Estrella's a little bit awkward and bad with people, and Saseo is more easygoing. Not super, like, not a charmer, but has a bit of a sense of humor, and is one of the very few people who actually gets Estrella, and he's left a note saying, you know, kind of telling Estrella what to expect on the road. Some things that they recommend that they purchase to help them in the journey. And a list of things that, of like, you know, this is something that the settlement needs. And at the very end, at the very end of this letter, Saseo writes, P.S. Try the caramel. And Estrella doesn't know what Saseo's talking about. And so while they're at an inn, and they finally found, not an inn, but a room in the tavern, you know, somebody has let them stay. And you know, they can finally have a warm bath and clean their clothes properly, eat real cooked food. It's very good. And they say they're talking to this to the tavern keeper, and they say, "What's a caramel?" And the tavern keeper, who is, I think, a very, you know, your typical, like, warm, you know, warm middle-aged lady, laughs and brings Estrella into the kitchens behind the bar and shows them this huge vat of caramel, and says, this is caramel. And Estrella goes, you eat it? Because I don't think candy is really not sweets like that anyway. Are normal where they're from. I think their sweet things are more kind of fruit based. there isn't it's a lot harder to come by sugar here or there, but I think sugar sugar's a little bit easier to get. It's a little bit closer. In this town. And I think that this particular tavern is pretty renowned for its caramel, to the point that people will bring them sugar so that they can make caramels, like, to sell to other places. I think there's like a little bit of a cottage industry in this very small fishing village. It sells fish and caramel. And the tavern keeper says, well, you eat it after you help me make it. And so Estrella spends the rest of the day kind of, helping her make these caramels, pouring out the vats of hot sugar and cream and onto sheets and smoothing it out. And I think these are just like your regular kind of square caramels. Letting them set, and then taking the set ones and cutting them up. And it smells wonderful. Estrella's never smelled anything this sweet before. And they are kind of... They're just so bewildered by everything that's going on. But they work hard. And the at the very end of the day, and it's late. They've had dinner, and then after dinner they're wrapping caramel into these like brightly colored papers with this woman. Or no, it's not. It's before dinner, I think. And it's finally done. And this woman says, well, now it's dinner time. And so they're just sitting, waiting with this pile of brightly colored paper wrapped caramel, just sitting staring at them while they're trying to like eat this stew, and not eat it too fast because they are still sick. And they're still trying to heal. Still can't eat a whole lot of solid food. And finally, the tavern keeper has been appeased enough that Estrella can have one of these tiny little caramels in this like bright red paper, and they unwrap it and they eat it, and it's sticky and sweet and smooth, and unlike anything they've ever had before. And they smile just so brilliantly, and the tavern keeper smiles back at them and says, I'm glad you like it, and gives them a bag, like a pretty significant sized bag of caramels, and says, don't eat these all. Some of them are for Saseo. So that's our scene. and we'll see what our problem is in the reef. I'm really sad because this has been a very cute scene of candies and nice ladies. So... Dylan. Rude. On the brink. So this card, by the way, is on the brink of war. Draw an additional problem. So explain to me how this works. Do I have to have a scene with this on the brink of war and then draw another problem? Or do I have two problems that I have to solve, and how many words do I have to use to solve it? While I wait for Dylan's answer, I'm gonna draw an additional problem card. It's unclear. My thought was you have two problems that are solved by one spell, but doing them sequentially would be valid. Well, I also draw an ancient curse. One word must be profane or hindering. Two problems solved by one spell. Okay. But not solved, only hindered, because I can only play one card. Okay, I got this. So... Raiders come to from the sea and pull up in this fishing village. Not a lot. It's not a full raiding party. This seems to be a scouting party from the neighboring nation. Because we're on the brink of war. And they're coarse. They're rough. They're not very nice. They demand to be put up, and there's no inn. There's nowhere to put them, so they just force people out of their homes. And they force this nice tavern keeper out of her room. They kind of say, well, if you don't have any rooms for me, we'll sleep in your room. And they force Estrella out of the room that they were staying in. And as they're forcing Estrella out, they see the lantern. And the lantern is, and they, and they, and Estrella grabs it and kind of takes it and holds it for them. And they say, "This is a magic lantern. I recognize it." And Estrella goes, "No, it's not. It's just a lantern. It's just my lantern. It's just a sacred flame. There's no such thing as magic." And Estrella hears in their head, "You're bluffing, right?" And they say, and the soldiers, these raiders say, "No, I know a magic lamp when I see one." This is a magic, cast a spell. Make us rich. And and Estrella says, "No, magic doesn't exist, and even if it did, I don't think it would work that way." And the raiders say, "Ah, so there is magic." And they grab the tavern keeper and hold a knife to her throat and say, "Give us that magic or we'll kill her." And Estrella doesn't know what to do. And the flame says, "You must not give me up. But we cannot let her die. Andun." Lay was an ice word, and I said that it was a water word, so, but it was accidentally a water word, so, I'm gonna make Andun my ice word, now, because, whoops, I did a bad. I guess it was still just like a water word in my head, or an ice word in my head. Andun. And the Estrella hears in a whisper, "Andun." And they say, "Andun." And I just rolled the dice. I rolled the d4 because it's a hindering word. So, and how does it, so the way that Andun hinders, yeah, it's just a hindering word. So I guess fictionally, how's this going to work fictionally? How its meaning will help or hinder the spell. So I think this will hinder the spell because this is an ice spell. And there isn't much water here. There isn't much that ice can do. And so this is not the best action. This is not the best spell to free the woman. But they don't want to show how powerful the lantern is. And I think that's why the lantern, or the flame, offers only Andun. And I already rolled it, so we're gonna see what it is. It's a 2! Amazing. So the problem is partially or temporarily solved. So they say Andun, and there's no water around. There's very little water around the beer, and the glasses freeze and shatter. But it's humid here. It's a fishing village. There's just water in the air, and the water in the air freezes and coalesces, and it shatters the knife at this woman's throat, and it startles them enough. It startles the raiders enough that Estrella and the woman are able to escape and run out, and with the lamp, but Estrella has left all of their belongings behind. All they have is this bag of caramel. And the woman says to Estrella, "Go, I will be fine, but you must leave, and you must take this magic with you. Good luck." And as Estrella is running, they hear sounds of fighting coming from the town, shouts and screams, but they cannot look back. They clutch the lantern in one hand and this bag of caramel in the other, and just run. So that was rough. We will we will play a new location card. Dylan, are all of these location cards just like conveniently ocean themed? Because they seem all really conveniently ocean themed to me. This is cool. I am actually really liking the way these location cards are shaping up. Salt Cliffs is her card. And the scene is making camp. So it's very hard to make camp when I've had a bunch of games that we're walking through the mountains for the whole game, so it's not all ocean, but this is working quite well. It is, yeah. it's very, so Salt Cliffs and making camp. It's very hard to make camp when you have nothing but a lantern and some candy. Oh, hello. Thank you for the raid, Jim. That's really lovely. Welcome. How was you were playing Tremulous, right? How was your game? We are playing Spoken Magic. It is a very cool and good, fun game written by Anarisis, who is in chat. We are Estrella of the Sunlit Coast. Estrella is the keeper of a sacred flame who has to take this sacred flame to a new location for their people. And they didn't believe in magic before, but they're not so sure anymore. The flame seems to be talking to them and telling them to say all these words. And these words are doing some stuff. So far on this adventure, to recap, there's been a brush fire, and it looks like a storm that destroyed their town they could see in the distance. This brush fire continued and started burning some lichens and fungus that caused an incredibly noxious smoke to come, and it was about to reach the fishing village, but Estrella was able to prevent it without, but not without hurting themselves and making themselves very sick in the process. And then when they reached the fishing village, they discovered the great treasure of caramel candy, but unfortunately had some not so good times with some raiders and had to run and leave almost all of their stuff behind. So right now, my prompt is, right now they have reached the Salt Cliffs, and my scene prompt is making camp. So they have nothing to make camp with. They have nothing to eat. They have nothing to sleep on. They have nothing to eat except caramel. They have nothing to sleep with. The only source of light and warmth they have is this sacred flame. So Tremulous went, well, they're in Siberia trying to hunt down books that no one in their right mind should read. Oh my goodness. I guess be careful with that. But like Siberia, the Salt Cliffs, it's very sparse. It's very cold. But Estrella has been walking for a very long time and has traveled a while and couldn't carry much with them, and so they know about hunting and creating shelter best they can in the land, living off the land best they can. And so I think they also have a knife on their belt. Not for fighting, just for camping things. And they spend a very, very long time working long into the night, working by the light of the sacred flame to try and build themselves some kind of wind guard from the elements on these salt cliffs, with rocks and what little branch and bush they can find, trying to they know they're going to have to do something with water soon, or find something to hold fresh water soon, and they're going to need food soon. But for now, it's about finding a safe and warm place to rest because they are still very ill. Things are not going so well for poor Estrella. So we're going to draw a problem card. And these problem cards were okay, but the last two problem cards really just kind of destroyed us. So let's see what this problem is. The crystal of Ozur Kai has broken. Wow, this means nothing to me. The crystal of Ozur Kai. I think this is the next day as they're walking, and they've heard stories of an ancient refuge, and it's their last hope because they are cold, they are starving, they are dehydrated, they are still sick. They can't even eat the candy because they just vomit it back up. They've heard of a secret refuge, the sacred refuge of Ozur Kai. And they know it's nearby on these cliffs. They don't know if it's real, but this is where it should be. And so I think at this point they are walking so slowly. Something that should take them a couple hours a distance takes them the whole day. And by the time they get to what looks to be a pedestal, they are crawling on their hands and knees. The flame has not spoken, except in the moments when they go to, or when Estrella looks like they might fall unconscious. The flame will speak just to wake them up. But there's not much that a flame can do And they come to the pedestal. And the flame says, "You shall be safe in the refuge of Ozarkai. All you have to do is shine my light on the crystal." And they don't notice it at first because they're so focused on trying to keep themselves up and awake. But there are weapons, and there are bodies. And it looks like another group of raiders have come here. And there was a battle, and in that battle, the crystal on the pedestal, the crystal of the refuge of Ozarkai, was shattered. And Estrella is too dehydrated to cry. So there are just these great heaving sobs coming from parched, acid-burned throat. As they look at these 3 pieces of crystal. And the flame says, "We can fix this. It will be okay. I can help you. You just have to believe, or else all will be lost." And the flame, the sacred flame, explains to the crystal, or to Estrella, how to place the pieces in the pedestal so that they will stay, and that only divine lightning will be able to meld it back together. And they whisper, "Azer." And through cracked lips and a voice that can hardly phonate, Estrella, holding the in the fetal position, holding the pedestal on the ground, says, "Azer." And now we roll a dice. If of all the times for a 6 to happen, it would be really nice if a 6 could happen right now. I rolled the dice. Let's see what it is. It's a 5. It's a 5. I've rolled a 5 every single time. All right. it is weak and only partially effective, the problem is solved, but only partially or temporarily. So the crystal isn't fixed, but the sacred lightning does trigger the pedestal. And the door to the refuge of Ozarkai opens. And it's a spiral staircase down from this pedestal. And almost comically, Estrella falls down this hole, down this staircase. Into a dark, quiet space. And they say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I failed you. And the flame says, you did not fail me, Estrella. Rest now. You did well. And then there is nothing. There is only black. For a long time. Until they wake up. Estrella wakes up on a bed of furs. And there is food. And their wounds are healed. But there is nobody there. And Estrella looks at the flame and says, what happened? Where am I? Oh, thank you, Jim. Thanks for hanging out. Thank you for the raid. And the flame says, "This is the refuge of Ozarkai. This is the place where those who have nowhere to go, go. And you have been deemed worthy. You will have to take the crystal with me. And it must be reforged within my fires when I am strong again. The path is long and hard and dangerous. And it will be harder and longer and more dangerous now that the power of Ozarkai has been lost. But it could do this one last thing. And that's the path of Ozarkai. We've gone about 2.5 hours, but I'm gonna keep going because I really want to find out what happens. I'll flip it. Only 2 words left, potentially, probably. All right, where do we go? Ooh. This is a Lake of Runes, a private moment. So finally we're moving further inland. And it has been quiet. Estrella doesn't really know what to do anymore because everything about their life has changed. Everything about what they knew about the world has changed. And they are visibly troubled and confused. And the flame understands this and does not do anything to hurt, to push the issue. And it's been long. They've been going through forest. It's been long and hard and dirty and sweaty. Because even though they're they're healthy. It's become much hotter as they've left the coast. There's no longer the ocean to regulate the temperature, and it is the heat of summer. And finally, they come to this lake that's covered in these strange runes, or surrounded by these strange runes on these kind of stone taluses. And the flame says, "I will be safe here. If you wish to bathe." And it's the first thing Estrella has said, or the flame has said in probably since the refuge of Ozarkai. And Estrella says, "You can't smell me, can you?" And the flame goes, "I am a flame. I cannot smell, but I can see you smell yourself." And Estrella laughs. And sets the lantern down in one of the taluses. And takes off their clothes and wades into the water and swims out into the very center of this lake, which is perfectly round. And lays in the water, floating on their back, staring up at the clouds in the sky. Alone for the first time their entire journey. And at peace. Now there's a problem. A voice thought long gone. The current player may reuse a word. I see. Yeah, I think I will. I think I will reuse gull. So after this kind of nice, calm moment, in the water, Estrella goes to work trying to clean their clothes the best they can. The kindness of Ozarkai gave them food and a place to rest, but didn't give them a new pack or anything, but there was a water skin, and so they fill up their water skin, and they're trying to scrub the worst of the dirt off with this with a probably like with a stone or something, you know, thinking if I can't, that getting wet, letting it air out is better than nothing. And they hear a voice, and my music is gone. Oh, that's because... There we go. They hear a voice. And they say, oh, excuse me. And Estrella freaks out and dives back into the water, trying to, like, kind of crouching down, and peeks their head up. Siseo? What are you doing here? And Siseo says, well, I was just doing some hunting, out of food, and need some more. And Estrella blushes and is like, oh, well, does that mean I'm close? I didn't think I was close. And Siseo says, no, I've been gone a couple days. Everything's fine in the area, I hope, but I had to leave. There isn't much anything there except my hut. I needed food. Something's been scaring them around here. So I think this new place, the hunting parties will be gone longer. The herds are move around a lot more. Do you want me to, like, just leave and you can get dressed? And Estrella, who is, you know, still, like, I think their chin is probably still a little bit underwater, in the middle of the lake, it's like, yeah, that would be good. And they go back to their clothes, which are soaking wet, and they don't want to wear wet clothes. They're hanging on a branch, and they think, okay, magic, it's a thing. Okay. And they say, Gull, and kind of hold their hands out at their clothes because they're not really sure how this works, but they're hoping that maybe the wind will come back and dry their clothes a little bit. And that hopefully it won't be as powerful because all they want to do is dry their clothes and they don't want to push away a whole bunch of stuff, like a whole bunch of clouds. So let's see how we do. I rolled a 1, which means nothing in this game. It just means that it's partial or temporary. So I think what happens is that it does, it dries some of their clothes. You know, the smaller ones, their socks are dry. Their underthings are dry. Pants are dry. Their shirt just blows clean off. Yeah, damp socks are the worst. That's why I specifically was like, okay, partial success, them socks. The shirt just blows clean off the branch into the forest. And Estrella hears a whoa! Estrella. Is this? Yeah, the wind. Could I have that, please? And so Saseo kind of like comically like covering. Actually, no, I don't think it covers their eyes. I think Saseo just kind of like walks over, hands them the shirt, looking kind of like politely not at a shirtless Estrella, but is like less like, now that they aren't completely in the nude, they're like partially covered, it's kind of like still a little wet. Wait, how did the rest of your clothes look fine? And she's like, oh yeah, the Estrella's kind of like, oh yeah, well, you know, I washed the shirt last. The other ones were pretty dry. Yeah. And it's kind of like an awkward moment, and they put the clothes back on. All right. So that is Gull. We're gonna take the card back. We're gonna flip that. We're gonna take that. Location. Crystal Woods, Pieces of the Past. So, Saseo has a very large, has a deer that they're carrying, or that he's carrying, along, kind of trussed up like a backpack on his shoulders, and says, it's easier if I take care of this back at camp. And so they walk through this forest of mostly deciduous trees, and the leaves are so almost transparent, so thin, and the sunlight kind of sparkles through them. And there are big, there are kind of large quartzite deposits, you know, from some glacial activity long ago in this woods. And I think I'm not going to narrate an entire conversation between Estrella and Saseo, but I think they just catch up Um, I think Saseo has been gone for some time. Um, and because they Estrella is taking the most direct path to their new home, but Saseo had to find this place, and so went far and wide and looked for this place, and mapped the area so that he could give Estrella the safe and the other people the fastest path. And so we just see a scene of, and I think as they've gotten, you know, as people get older and more into their lives and into their abilities, into their more into their jobs, they kind of fall apart, or they grow apart. And so yeah, I think this walk through the woods, we just see a really nice scene of these two old friends catching up, both from the time that Saseo has been gone, but also from the years that they've grown apart. And it's really nice. Until, God damn it! Dylan. Heldenhar, the slumbering dragon, appears. Okay. So I think Saseo is kind of like a standard adventurer type with a sword. And I think as they're exiting the woods, they come across this dragon. That everybody knows is Heldenhar, the slumbering dragon. And Heldenhar is like ancient, has been sleeping for so long. Most people suspect that he is a big, just quartzite erratica. And you know, there's moss growing on him, and he's white and kind of looks like, and his scales are crystalline. And when they walk past this dragon, the sacred flame flares to life. Almost surprised to see an old friend. And the dragon wakes up and sees these two people, and they immediately assume it's a threat. That he immediately assumes that they are a threat, and gosh, Saseo kind of like does the like stand back, and you know, like mom arms Estrella back and holds his sword out, and the dragon kind of growls. And the flame says there doesn't need to be a fight here. All you need to do is ask it to move. And Estrella says, excuse me, Heldenhar, my lamp here would like you to move? And Saseo is looking at Estrella like, what? You need to... Why? Please stop. This is not gonna work. I know you've been alone for a long time, but, like, you're talking to your lamp. And Heldenhar, in this voice nobody has heard for thousands of years, says, if you can crack the stone on my back, I will know that you speak true. And the lantern whispers, Sharor. And Estrella, who should be used to this, but the words just sound so weird to them every single time, says, Sharor? And we'll see how that goes. This is a lightning word, by the way. Oh, the dice didn't work. I did it! I rolled a 6! It happened! Yeah. So, so this bolt of divine lightning comes down on top of, the stone that has grown over, Heldenhar, and cracks and explodes into, it like cracks the stone, and these huge bright white wings unfurl, and Heldenhar goes, as just like pieces of shrapnel and rock are like hitting trees and leaves, and there's a huge sound, and Heldenhar goes, I am free, and looks at the lamp and says, it is good to see you, friend. We knew this time would come. This place is good and safe, and I will be glad that you will be closer. And then Heldenhar launches into the air, and it's just, and through this open spot in the canopy where this Eradika was, or not Eradika, actually super old dragon, Saseo and Estrella look at this beautiful, majestic dragon flying in the air, and it's wonderful. I mean, I guess that was kind of a problem, but mostly I got a cool dragon friend, so. All right, this is our last word, our last location. Perfect. The Castle of Echoes, the ancient song. So, this is, these locations have been bang on every time, and I'm really happy about it. So Siseo leads Asteria back to another ancient ruined city that looks just like, well, not just like, but very similar to Ithrazaya. But less ruined, because it is nestled against a mountain. And there is no sea that is going to destroy this city. And Siseo takes Astrea's hand excitedly and says, look, come. And Astrea blushes a little bit at the contact, but allows themselves to be pulled in and into this castle. And the buildings, it looks like there is a place where there was buildings. You can see kind of patches of dirt and stone and road, but it looks like the buildings might have been made of wood and not stone like at home. And so they are the only stone structure standing is this castle. And he takes Astrea into the castle, which has kind of stained glass window, stained glass light shining through in its empty halls. And Siseo says, "This is the most wonderful place. It will be a good home for us, but wait, Astrea, until you see your new place." And he's almost giddy, and he takes them into this beautiful, beautiful place. This round, small chapel off the main hall of the castle. Where the ceiling has these panels of stained glass, so the colors come down against the walls, against the stone walls, and there is the bowl for the sacred flame. And Siseo has already prepared a bed for this. And the flame says, "Yes, I am home." And Astrea, with their beautiful, clear voice, low and warm, sings the song that has been taught to the keeper of the flame for generation after generation. And lights and lets and gives the flame, lights this flame in the new land that will be their home. And this time Estrella can feel the magic wash over this place and out across into the land before. And they look at Siseo and they say, "This is our home." And then the Crypt King's Plague. And then as they are preparing to send word to the town, or to their home, Siseo falls incredibly ill. Estrella is afraid that he is going to die. And it is because Siseo has been staying in the castle. And it turns out that there is an unearthly rot coming from the crypt. And Estrella brings their lantern that still has a little bit of the sacred flame, and looks around, and the flame says, "Yes, this is why your people had to leave in the first place. I thought the corruption would be gone by now, but I don't think it has. And Estrella says, "Does that mean we need to find a new home? That this is not our home?" And the flame says, "I am much stronger now." Burr. And this time Estrella knows what they mean, what the flame means, and they close their eyes and they open the door. To the lantern, and they say, "Burr." And it's a 2, so it's partial or temporary. And flame shoots out through the land or through the tunnels of these crypts, and there is a raging inferno. And when days after the inferno is finally gone, it finally burns itself out, and Estrella has been taking care of Saseo. And as the fire burns out, Saseo feels better. And Estrella goes back down and goes to the lantern. And there is just a smoldering coal in the lantern. And Estrella says, "Are you all right?" And the flame, the coal, says, "I was strong enough to beat it, but I fear I will be dormant for a long time. You must kindle me further." And we will not be able to speak until you have found yourself and found your power. And Estrella rushes and brings the coal back to the bowl of the sacred flame. And the coal sits there and doesn't catch, and the voice fades and says, "I will be back once you are ready. I will be back." And that's our last word. All right. So, now, speechless. No more cards are drawn. Each player takes an additional turn to share what they learned about magic over the course of the journey. Then they go around in reverse order, playing location cards, describing what you see in your path home. Hi, Rita. So Estrella learns that they have magic. And Estrella misses their friend so very much, but trusts their words. And so resolves to go home lead their people to this new land. And see if they can find the ancient texts that will teach them how to learn the magic that is inside of them. They say goodbye to Siseo, and this time, because the land is protected, Siseo goes with them. And as they leave, the city vanishes into dust. And this is because, this is because the fire is protecting them. They go through the woods. Actually, no, I don't think the city vanishes. I think Heldenhar, the dragon, stands guard while they're gone. And they walk through the woods. And this time they talk of the future. They stop at the Lake of Ruins, and they this time rest together, floating in the water, and their hands touch. Is that? No. Okay, yeah. And they stop in the salt cliffs and find the refuge of Ozarkai, which is empty. And has somehow closed itself. They head back to the town of Gilded Reef, which suffered damage from the raiders, but no lives were lost. And they eat caramels together, too many caramels. And this time, to get through the fjord, Siseo builds them a boat, and it is much faster. And as they reach the plains of Primordium, they see it has been raining, and among the charred ground, new grass is coming up. And they come to Ithrazaya, and they tell their people they have a new home. And together, they lead their people back. And that is Spoken Magic. This is a really sweet game, Dylan. I really like it. Gosh, that was good. All right, I have to do one more thing. Sit in silence. I didn't sit in silence that long. I have to write a short phrase on their index card that starts with "my words are" to indicate how their words have changed through sharing. Estrella's words are real. Their magic is real. And I think they spend the next few years honing their magic. I think they learn from Heldenhar. And eventually they are able to rekindle that coal. And the first thing that the flame says to them is, "Well, it took you long enough." Yeah. Gosh, this is real good and I like it a lot. I think it would be really interesting. I'd like to play it with more people because I think it would be a very different game with more people. Just because there's a lot of kind of like the hindering and helping mechanics that you don't really get to explore as a solo player. This isn't bad. Like, it works as a solo game, but it's just a very, I think it's a different game from what you potentially intended it to be. So yeah, that'll be really interesting. Everything looks great on the Roll20. It's really easy to use. It's really easy to play. I like this. I recommend it. Yeah, and I like games that can be used. I like games that can be played alone or together. Because sometimes you're like, man, I really want to play this game, but I don't have any people around. But if you really want to, and you know, sometimes you want to play a solo game, but there are people around. So I like this game that kind of can do both. There aren't too many games like that. And so I like that this exists as an option. Yeah, so, gosh, this is the longest stream I ever did, is a long stream. Thank you so much for watching. If you, and thank you for all of your follows, and support, and bits and subs. It's really exciting that I am it's really exciting that I'm an affiliate now. I'm gonna look into emotes, obviously, and you know, still gonna do some more shows. We'll be back with Half Sick of Shadows on Monday next week. At this time slot, I will be playing Alone Among the Stars, because that is what won the Twitter poll, but I wanted to play this because it's really cool, and Dylan has been such a great supporter of me streaming, kind of ever since I started, or ever since I even talked about it. And so I think it feels right that my first affiliate stream was Dylan's game. I'm gonna try raiding, I think, because I've never done that before. Let's raid Tales from the Grim. They're playing some Dragonlance Dungeons and Dragons. Lots of good, cool folk there. And Dawn is one of the greatest GMs I've ever dealt with. So, played with. Dealt with is another way to describe GMing. So, definitely check that out. And I will see you guys on Monday. Bye. Oh. Raid word is smooch, I guess.